Hi everyone, this is Minimalist Terrain. If you're a returning viewer, welcome back. If you're new to the channel, hi. Just to bring you up to speed, this is video 13 in my year-long quest to put out one video a week related to tabletop wargaming and crafting and creating terrain for you to have good battles over. It is video 13 and some would say that's an unlucky number. And I guess it was for me a few weeks back when I had a motorcycle accident and ended up in hospital. One thing that did come out of it, however, was after I was released, I was sent home with these still attached. These are medical sensors. Now, they're a nice, interesting shape, and I thought, what better way to commemorate the incident than to incorporate them into a build. Now, I will not by any way, shape or form recommend that you get your crafting supplies by hitting the side of a car at around about 30 miles an hour. However, waste not, want not. They are a nice shape, so I am going to incorporate them into the build. Speaking of which, what is it we're going to make? Well, a question that comes up time after time on Facebook pages to do with crafting that I'm a member of is somebody will show a photo of some packaging material that they've got their hands on, and what can they make with this? What nice shape does it lend itself to? And I managed to pick up this. I'm not 100% certain what the packaging is for. I think it's medical supplies of some form of description. No, I didn't get them while I was in hospital. I picked them up elsewhere. However, it does kind of look very much already like a science fiction building. So, with that and a few other materials, that's exactly what I'm going to turn it into. A pile of reclaimed material and scrap, and we'll turn it from this into one of these. Now, first thing that I notice with this, and you do get packaging of various thicknesses. This is a little bit flimsy. I wouldn't necessarily want to place a large amount of metal miniatures on top of this, otherwise it's going to start deforming and possibly breaking. So the very first thing that I'm going to do with this, and I would recommend that you're doing this with any packaging that you have managed to pick up, is to just use some scrap material, reinforce the inside. I'll get on with that and then I'll show you the main build. Right, so the first part of the prep is complete. I have added some scrap core flute on the inside, on all the walls and the ceiling. And I've also put this load bearing piece just so that that roof doesn't collapse if anything is put on it. What I've also done is just use some very fine grit sandpaper, and I've sanded all around the outside because I'm not 100% sure with this material how it's going to take glue or a paint job, so best to just rough it up and not take any chances. Remember, waste not, want not. I've got a few little shavings of core flute here, which are nice, interesting shapes. They can just be chopped up and go straight into the industrial rubble mix to add a little bit more texture to that. Let's start on the first sub-assembly. Now, first thing to do is get all of the gunk off the back of this medical sensor. Now, if you're using any sort of textured stickers or anything like that in any of your builds, easiest way to get rid of the old sort of rubbish from the sticky side is to just use basic household margarine. Now, this is an old trick. You basically just rub it in and it interferes with the glue and all of the nasty stuff just rubs off with your thumb. Then a quick wash in soapy water and that's ready to use. Now that that's clean and dry, we're going to use it as the base for, well, the communications array. Because this is quite a fragile upright structure, I'm going to use quite a strong glue. This is just Dollar-Store 2-part epoxy. We'll get some of that mixed up and start getting it put together. Just had a few problems with the epoxy there. It's not setting as I would have expected. So I've used a bottle cap and some blue tack just to brace the model just while it goes through well, probably an extended curing period. But I'll move on to the next part. So next for any building we need some doors and windows. We'll go for some corrugated card and make this a roller door. Let's just get a miniature. Get around about the right size, about there. Doesn't quite fit, needs to be a little bit narrower. Okay, next we want some kind of frame for the door. So what I'm going to do is reuse some cardboard packaging, box of crackers, and what I want is one of these edges, because that is going to fold over the side and essentially act as the runners for the roller door. And it's quite a narrow strip that we're after. So that, because it's got a crease in already from where it was packaging, will fold back into shape. Without any problem. One piece for the side, piece for the other side. And then a quick trim at 45 degrees there. And there. And there. And there, and we should have the makings of a frame. Right, I'll get that glued together. Next up we're going to want some windows. Now, because I guess they're a little bit more security conscious, we want something with maybe a little bit of a mesh rather than just a flat pane. And an old-time modeller told me that one of the best things for that was this. This is industrial shipping tape. It's the kind of thing that they strap around big boxes to keep them on pallets and things like that. So I'll get some squares of this cut out and then we'll make some frames for them. We'll make some frames for these windows. I'm going to reclaim another piece of this scrap card, and I just want it a little wider than the length of my tape. I'll just square it up on the grid lines there. That's one of the good things about having a cutting mat like this, is you can use those grid lines to great effect. Straighten that up. Yeah, that should be okay. Just trim that off. I've turned it over so I can see a little bit better. Now, what I'm going to do, this is an awl. It's a spike tool used for punching into card. You can use a pin, and all I'm going to do is mark the corners where I want the window frame to be. Because that will make it far easier when I come to cut it. About there. And then just cut out those interiors going from hole to hole. Just need to make sure that you actually go all the way through, which I didn't. That's better. And then that should just pop out like that. And everything going according to plan, by the time you've got it cut out, you should have one window. I'll get the others done. So there we have 4 security meshed windows. Let's get them glued on. Now the last thing I want to do is put a little bit of detailing on this rear section of the model. I don't know, I guess to me that sort of looks like it could have some kind of ventilation system at the back there. So for the grille work for that, I'm just going to use some cable ties, cut them into lengths, stick them on the back. Yeah, that's fine. So I'll get some of these cut. Now, I wouldn't normally use PVA for this, I would use something like super glue, but I am going to go for the high grade PVA, mainly because that area is not square, so depending on how I've got my cuts I may need to adjust things just a little bit, and of course PVA will just give me that little bit of work time. Okay, that one's going to have to come off because it's just a little bit too big. Okay, grille work in place, and let's just get a couple of little bits of card on there to hide the joins. Alright. Let's leave that to dry. So the final piece of assembly has been done. I've super glued that communication array to the top of the model. Now it's time to texture the outside walls. Because I am not 100% certain how a texture coat is going to stick to this, I am going to fall back to one of my favourites. Now this is Reeves Coarse Texture Gel. It's a little bit more expensive, $14 New Zealand for a 200ml tube. I guess that turns out around about £7 sterling. Not sure what it would be in US dollars, maybe about a tenner. But it is my go-to. It's a very fine grain texture and it sticks to pretty much anything. Now because it is so expensive, I'm going to use it straight out of the tube, and I'm just going to use a small old brush just to work it around the edge of the detail, and then I will swap to a larger brush to do the rest of the flat surfaces. Just be very careful that you're just going up to the edge and not actually onto the top of any of your detail. Just work it in there, and that just covers up any joins that you may have. Okay, time to get the hairdryer out and force dry that. So the texture has been force dried. Before I give it a base coat, I just want to do these little areas out in front of the buildings. I'm going to put some ground cover on, but I'm just going to use straight sand, and then on that lip I'll use a slightly coarser blend. Time for a paint job. I've already given it a coat of light grey. That's tied everything together, and I've also added around the edges some builder sand. I'm going to be painting that up so that it blends in with my science fiction battle boards a little bit later on. We'll give it a dry brush now, and for that I just got some cream paint and give it a complete once over. Next we're going to pick out some of those feature details in black so that we can give them a dry brush with silver and get them looking like metal later on. Let's get those silver areas dry brushed. Very last thing, dry brush that ground effect so that it blends in. Obviously there's more we could do with the paint job in terms of detailing and weathering, but as it stands it's got the 3 colour minimum, which would make it eligible for most tournament battlefields, and you can't really get more minimalist than that. We will probably come back to this piece and maybe do a little bit on weathering and things like that in a later tutorial. But there you have it, scrap to model. As ever, if you like what you've seen, please do the social media thing and hit like and subscribe and share and all of those kinds of things. Otherwise, get in your junk pile and get some crafting done.